right, greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to our Tuesday night live stream for Week 7 of the 2024 fantasy football season. Over the course of the next hour plus, we're going to be answering any and all fantasy football related questions in regards to potential, trades, waiver wire pickups, and or starts or sits going into Week 7. This upcoming Thursday, we have, of course, the Denver Broncos taking on the New Orleans Saints, but I'm sure we don't want to talk about that. Not too many interesting potential plays within the game. I know many of us want to talk about the trades that occurred earlier today. First and foremost, the thumbnail of today's episode, Devontae Adams finally being traded to the New York Jets. It was a matter of time, not a matter of if, but a matter of when. Then we have Amari Cooper, who, again, we had heard rumblings and rumors about potentially him being moved. I would have thought that the Kansas City Chiefs would be the team to step up and go after him. Obviously, the Buffalo Bills take claim. And then we had Cam Akers earlier today. Now that, of course, they have a healthy Dameon Pierce, Joe Mixon, Derek Mbawale has played well. Cam Akers being traded to the Minnesota Vikings. He was with that organization last year. I guess they want more, stability at the running back position with a little bit more depth in play in case something is to happen to Aaron Jones. Maybe that is a telling sign to his injury, but everything I've heard is relatively positive that he kind of escaped out of a major injury. So hopefully it's not something that kind of preludes to the potential of him being out for a significant amount of time. Either way, hope you guys are doing well. Again, earlier today, we dropped our rankings for our running backs in regards to Week 7. If you guys haven't checked out the video, it's live on the channel right now. If you guys haven't yet already, do me a favor, click the like button there. As well, if you haven't yet already on this live stream, do me a favor and click the like button down below. Continues to help support the channel and, of course, bring daily content from my direction to you guys every single day. Thank you very much. Okay. So again, we're talking questions. We're talking fantasy football. If you're going to send in a question to take priority in regards to super chat or via the live chat, whichever way you want to go about it, include your scoring format. If you do not include your scoring format, expect me to come asking for it in order to kind of clarify. The more context you provide, half PPR, standard, full PPR, the easier it'll be to be able to get through this. All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay. Let's get into answering questions with the first question of the day coming in from Adam Amar, who says, rest of season and a half PPR, can you rank Mooney, Pickens, and Myers? Yeah, between the three of them, that's another piece of information we got to talk about. I was so confident that they wouldn't replace Justin Fields. And then this morning I wake up and all of a sudden I see Mike Tomlin at the podium saying that they want to give Russell Wilson an opportunity and that he hasn't been given a fair chance and they want to go ahead and see what he's made of, all this kind of jazz. I mean, just say it just say it. Just say you do not trust Justin Fields, because that's really what they're saying with their overall, decision-making with that, I don't know, man. It's tough. I think Justin Fields has played well enough to earn the starting position within the organization, but obviously the coaching staff does not feel as confident as I do within the overall circumstance. Therefore, I will just, I will default and hope that they can continue to make the right decisions. Now, in regards to making the right decision for your case, Adam Amar, in regards to Mooney, Pickens, and Myers. In a half PPR, if Russell Wilson is an actually solid quarterback, Pickens would be the most valuable of the group. Again, last season, we saw in a really dysfunctional offense, Russell Wilson elevate Courtland Sutton to having 10 touchdowns within the given year. Obviously, Russell Wilson is a far more accomplished and polished passer, so it would elevate him. Second, I would go Mooney. Third, I would go Myers. But that's only if, in fact, this injury for Myers isn't going to continue to potentially tail him for the next coming weeks or potentially force him to miss any significant time. Considering I don't know what the overall status of that is. Myers sits at 3, Mooney at 2. Otherwise, if in fact we're in a situation where Myers is healthy and never misses another game for the remainder of the season, is the number one of that team, he would be ahead of Mooney as the number 2 option. Thank you. Moving on to a question that comes in from Juice Vino. Thank you, Juice. Says, sup, Drew, is Trey Tucker a pickup option? I guess he could be. Ultimately, he's not that great of a talent, right? Like, if you're just basing it off of opportunity share, then you could also argue that, like, Elijah Moore would be a guy that we would go after now that Amari Cooper's out of that organization. But honestly, these players within the offensive scheme just aren't very valuable. Like, if I am going after players on the Raiders, all I want is Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers. I don't want to have any other pieces associated with that offense, quite frankly. And then as for like the Cleveland Browns, I just want David Njoku. That's it. Like Nick Chubb, sure, maybe as my RB4, but outside of those kind of scenarios, not really interested in anything else within those teams unless a quarterback change is to occur going forward. All right, let's see here. Adam Imar has sent in a follow-up question. He says, I have Sam Darnold, Jalen Hurts, JJ Ayuk, Pickens, Mooney, Myers. Trade that currently stands is Darnold and JJ for AJ Brown and Waddle. Okay, cool. Sounds good. I'll take the A.J. Brown Waddle side very comfortably. You have Jalen Hurts. You're swapping a top-tier wide receiver for another top-tier wide receiver. Then you get Waddle, who eventually will get himself an elevation of overall production with the return of Tua Tagovailoa. I think that actually helps you in the long run. And then your last question here, trade Ayuk and Mason for Reed. If you don't have Christian McCaffrey, I could justify it ultimately, yeah, because again, Christian McCaffrey is anticipated to return in early November. If you want out on Ayuk, again, I can understand the the dissatisfaction with the overall pick as of thus far this season. I tell you to stick around with it, but considering you'd be kind of getting out from underneath Mason without Christian McCaffrey on your team, I don't mind the deal overall. Thank you, Adam. Appreciate it. All right, let's see here. We had a question that came in from Alex, who says the following. Okay, there's a two-part question here. So the first part says, Sup, Drew, I'm currently 6-0 in a 10-team half PPR league. 3 wide receivers, 2 flex. Okay, cool. My team is Purdy, Debo, Godwin, Devontae Smith, Devontae Adams, K9, Brees, Montgomery, Ferguson. My bench consists of, okay, dude, you've got so many players. Mahomes, Jacobs, Wan'Dale Robinson, Juju, Jacoby, Javonte, and Hawkinson. Potential moves, question mark. Thinking of trading Devontae/Wan'Dale for Tyreek Hill or Josh and Wan'Dale Robinson for Achane. I'm okay with either of those trades. Look, okay, so this is the way that I see it, right? Devontae Adams with Aaron Rodgers on roster now. For those of you wondering, right? Devontae Adams has top 12 upside rest of the season. That's a given, right? And then Garrett Wilson on the same, conversation has himself a lot of value considering he will now be taking on number 2 cornerbacks for the rest of the season. And Lazard is going to stay in the he's going to play in the slot position like he has had for majority of this year. So, I mean, just like, how we talk about T. Higgins is a number 1 wide receiver, but gets to go against number 2 cornerbacks all week long. That is what Garrett Wilson will now see going forward, which of course he will have value in that circumstance. Either way, as for your question, looking at your team as a whole with 3 wide receivers, 2 flex, typically I'd like to keep the depth, but you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 startable options every week and only 7 spots you can fill them in. Ultimately, I'm okay with doing one of these 2-for-1s, but I won't do both. If I was to give you a preference, my preference would be going after Achane. That would be my preference at this current moment, Alex. If you want to go after Tyreek, you can, but I do prefer going after Achane because I think he also provides value this week, which, I mean, technically so can Tyreek Hill considering they're playing the Colts, but I don't really trust the quarterback play until Tua returns. But yeah, as of right now, if it was my team, considering you already have Debo, Godwin, Devontae Smith, Devontae Adams, I'd rather just go after Achane there. Again, you could theoretically get away with either of the two because both of them are relatively equal trades, but that's the direction I'm going in as of right now. Thank you very much, Alex. All right, we'll move on to a question that came in from Michael Barton, who says, would you trade Terry McLaurin for Kamara rest of season PPR? I have Adams, Henry, Gibbs, Deontay, Tyreek Hill, Jordan Mason, Singletary. Okay, so you've got 3 solid wide receivers, 2 solid running backs, and you're basically just trying to figure out who you're going to play in the flex rest of the season. Yes, I would make the trade. I'd rather have Kamara rest of the season as it stands. Again, as of right now, there's a little bit of a uncertainty as to the consistency of his production because of the quarterback situation, all the injuries that have taken place within this offense, but I still believe that Kamara will be a consistent option. Even in the game last week where they're getting completely torched, he's still able to find himself a lot of receiving utilization and find himself in the end zone. Taysom Hill's still injured. Obviously, he's going to play a huge factor. So, yeah, I'm okay going after Kamara in this circumstance in order to kind of bolster your running back position. You'll have Henry, Gibbs, and Kamara rest of the season, which is pretty strong to say the very least, Michael. Thank you. Roy Shaver sends in a question. Thank you, Roy. Roy says the following. Starting David Montgomery and JT, if active. If not, can play Najee Harris. Should I drop Trey Sermon for a wide receiver / tight end depth for Dobbs, Shakir, Douglas, McConkey, Lockett, and Njoku? Yeah, I would say yeah. I mean, look, at this point, I think Trey Sermon could be a very valuable play to you. So, if you want to just leave JT in your IR spot and drop Sermon to pick up a player, sure, you can. If JT is not in the IR spot anymore and has to come off of that spot, you may not even be able to pick up anybody because then at that point you have no IR spot available. That being said, if you need the wide receiver depth, I'm perfectly happy going after either like Dobbs, Douglas, or Lockett. If you need the depth. If you don't and you can sit tight and just kind of wait until the week progresses and see whether or not JT is going to be active, I think it'd probably be best for you. That being said, am I going to play Sermon against Miami over Najee Harris versus the Jets? Most likely, honestly, because Miami's defense is awful in terms of stopping the run, the second best matchup at the position. They've given up, like I mentioned earlier today in the running back video in regards to rankings, they've given up 100 rushing yards and 1 rushing touchdown to every team that they have played to their opposing running backs. So Sermon would still be a very valuable prospect in the absence of Jonathan Taylor within the upcoming matchup. Thank you. We move on to a question that came in from Garrett Neese, who says, with ETN doubtful, who do I go, Chase Brown or Tank Dell? Or Tank, no, that's not Tank Dell, Tank Bigsby. Again, guys, if you guys are going to ask about Tank, no more Tanks. Let's go Bigsby or Dell, just for clarity's sake. Thank you very much. As for the answer of your question, I would rather play Chase Brown. Again, in my video earlier today, they're relatively close within their overall rankings. They're both top 20 running backs, but I do prefer Chase Brown at this current moment in time. Thank you. And that's mainly because of the overall receiving upside that he is getting on a weekly basis in comparison to Tank Bigsby, who unfortunately does not see any receiving upside. Billy Roy sends in a question, says, what's up, Andrew? Mahomes or Burrow rest of the season? Not even close. It's Burrow, and it's by a significant margin. Thank you very much, Billy. Moving on to Infinity and Bijan, who says, trade McLaurin for Tracy and Downs. Full PPR. Nope, not interested in that. I'd rather keep McLaurin rest of the season. Again, Tracy is 100% contingent on the disappearance of Devin Singletary. Unless you know something that I don't in regards to Devin Singletary's injury and or something that's going on within the coaching staff, as they have already predetermined that they're going to stick with Tracy as the starting running back rest of the season. Until that is designated, I'd much rather keep McLaurin rest of the season, especially considering Downs no longer has Flacco and Tracy might go back to being the RB2, or even if it's a split backfield, it's still not going to be worth it. Dragon Slayer sends in a question, says PPR, DK, Hill, and McLaurin rest of season. Are we talking about like who's the most valuable? Tyreek Hill would be the most valuable rest of season. Out of those three, it's Tyreek Hill, Dragon Slayer, and it's not even close. If Tua comes back and it's just normal Tua, Tyreek Hill goes back in a full PPR to putting up 23 plus points per game. So that's where I'm leaning in the direction of. Thank you. Moving on to a question that comes in from Shung, who says, question is in the chat, man. Okay, sounds good. I see it. Says, in a 12-team full PPR, I'm currently 4-2. I have Dak, I have J.K. Dobbins, I have Moss, I have Kareem Hunt, I have Tank Bigsby, Pacheco, Tyreek Hill, Nico Collins, Terry McLaurin, Debo, Dobbs, and Jake Ferguson. I got offered Justin Fields and JSN for Debo. You don't need Justin Fields because he's getting replaced, unfortunately. So you'd keep him. Whoever's trying to offer you that trade is actually trying to swindle you. They're trying to fleece you. And you should not be trading for Justin Fields at the current moment in time, considering Russell Wilson will probably be the starter by the end of this week. Thank you. Q Hussein sends in a question. I don't see where the question... Okay, I see it. Never mind. Thank you very much. It says Marvin Harrison and Dobbins for Neighbors in a half PPR, 12-team league. My other running backs are Brian Robinson Jr., Montgomery, and Chase Brown. Yeah, I'm perfectly comfortable with that trade. I think, again, Marvin Harrison will get better over time, but if you can't wait for that, you don't want to be patient with it in that circumstance, I have no issue. Again, you're trading for a wide receiver that thus far, the last 3 healthy games that he played was averaging over 20 points per game in a half PPR. So Neighbors would, yeah, I have no issue making that trade in your circumstance there, Hussein. Thank you. Mike Doe sends in a question. Says, I got Jonathan Taylor for Smitty/Raheem. Thoughts? That's a great trade. Congratulations on stealing Jonathan Taylor in that circumstance. Odds on him playing this week, we'll know by tomorrow. If there's any sort of limited participation tomorrow, that'll give us a good sign in comparison to the last 2 weeks in which he has not participated on Wednesday. So time will tell. But obviously, like, again, if the injury was serious enough to where he would miss a huge string of time, they would have put him on the IR, right? So he's already missed 2 weeks. I think a third week is in question. Obviously, if he's not at if he's not 95% back, they're not going to roll with him this week. But we'll know by Friday for sure. But tomorrow will kind of give us a little bit of an indication as to how it's going to go. Even if he doesn't play this week, you know, I think he still made a great trade in that circumstance. Myra Williams sends in a question, says, I traded Bijan and London and White, okay, but I was going to drop him anyways. Got Saquon and HN. Great. I have no issue with that. You got an improvement from Bijan to Saquon, and then you end up getting HN, who again once, let's see here, what are your wide receivers? Okay, so you have Josh Allen, you have Josh Allen, Derrick Henry, Saquon, JJ, Malik Neighbors, Breece Hall, yeah, you're good to go. I have no issue with those trades at all. I think you made a huge upgrade at running back, to say the very least. Now having Saquon, Henry, and HN, while you still have these stud wide receivers across the board. Again, your team is already stacked, Myra, so it's just a matter of like, you're now adding flavor to the team. You're just putting your style on it. And at this point, you're investing for the future, which I think is very smart. Thank you. Justin sends in a question, says, would you still pick up Ty Chandler with Akers trade? I don't know if the trade for Akers is a designation that they don't trust Chandler more than they just want more depth at their RB3. I don't know. Again, at this point, it seems like, okay, so he's already familiar with the offense. He played for them last year. So coming in and immediately playing would not be out of the realm of possibility. Now, if I was to predict between Chandler and Cam Akers, who would be the prevailing running back, I still think that Ty Chandler is the better back of the two. So theoretically, if you're, I guess, an Aaron Jones manager, you'd still go after Ty Chandler. Otherwise, again, unless Aaron Jones is going to miss 2 to 4 weeks, I'm not interested in really picking up either of the two with waiver priority, mainly because this upcoming week they take on Detroit. Then the 3 weeks after, weeks 8, 9, and 10, are the only relevant matchups. So unless we get multiple weeks of missing time, I'm not too interested in picking up either of the two. Thank you. Moving on to a question that comes in from Reuven Roberts. Thank you, Reuven. Reuven says the following. Let's see here. Play Richardson or pick up Darnold or Russell Wilson. Richardson versus Miami or Darnold versus Detroit. I'd rather play Darnold, honestly. It's 6 point per passing touchdown. Doesn't really matter. I almost need Anthony Richardson to prove to me that he is fantasy relevant before I can throw him out there. And also the fact that he's dealing with the oblique injury, there's still a risk theoretically that he could go into this game and then get injured midway through, re-aggravates that injury, and then, here comes Flacco again. So let's give it some time. Let's roll with Darnold in that circumstance, Reuven. Thank you. Doug sent in a question. Doug says, hey, Andrew, I'm currently 2-4 in a 12-team full PPR. How do I beef up my roster? My running backs are currently Bijan, Mason, Najee, Braylon Allen, Algier, Tyrone Tracy. My wide receivers are BTJ, Marvin Harrison, D-Hop, Slayton. And I have tight end Laporta. Quarterbacks are Goff and Prescott. Okay, so looking at it from my perspective, just an objective macro, Prescott is worthless to you going forward because Goff has already passed his bye, and the way that Goff has recently played over the course of the last 2 weeks and the way that offense is churning out points, it seems like, Goff is the guy for the rest of the season regardless of matchup. So Prescott, again, you can go, do away with him what you want. Now, as for your wide receiver depth, right, like D-Hop and Slayton, again, Slayton was a fill-in for 2 weeks. Outside of that, D-Hop, I don't think has very much value unless he gets traded to the Kansas City Chiefs in the next couple days. Again, those rumors have gone around, so maybe based on the compensation that was given for a player of, Amari Cooper's caliber and Devontae Adams' caliber at the ages they're at, maybe we'll see a very similar compensation point for D-Hop. We'll have to wait and see as to how that transpires. Either way. So Slayton's a drop. D-Hop's a keep just in case a trade was to occur. Marvin Harrison and BTJ, again, we're still holding on to those two. Those are your two valuable prospects. Theoretically, of course, you already know that Marvin Harrison is going to be out this week. It's probably in your best interest because of the concussion protocol to pick up like a Michael Wilson just to beef up your team a little bit in that circumstance. But as for like making trades to get players in return, I don't see a way unless you're parting from Laporta. You'd have to give some of your best players to get value in return. Because nobody really wants Najee. I guess you can send away Mason in order to try to get some running back value in return or wide receiver value to the Christian McCaffrey manager. You could end up knocking on their door and just getting anything you can get in return for that. But outside of that, I'm not trying to give away Bijan or Najee, BTJ or Marvin Harrison, or quite frankly, Laporta or Goff, because those are your pillars. If you were to give away those players, you'd have to get huge upgrades in comparison, and you don't really have the depth on roster, considering the 12-team format, to be able to make a trade that significantly beefs up your team. You really just have to hit the waivers and kind of just hope that these players pan out. Now, as for running back, you just literally only have 3 viable guys. Mason's probably out of the 3 that you probably want to move in order to try to get value in return. Otherwise, Tracy's the gamble piece, and Braylon Allen and Algier are insurance pieces. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Mad Dog sends in a question. It says, in a PPR, I just got offered Marvin Harrison for Amari Cooper. Very well. I have Josh Allen as my quarterback. My starting wide receivers 1 and 2 right now are London and Higgins. Okay. Until Nico Collins comes back. Very well. League format, 2 wide receivers, 1 flex. Okay. So we're basically asking, is Amari Cooper going to be good enough in the addition to this offense to be more valuable than Marvin Harrison rest of season? Okay, so based on how Marvin Harrison has looked thus far, the way that they utilize him, I think that objectively, the Arizona Cardinals incorrectly use his talent. Now, does he at times play not up to his overall skill level? Sure, but there are many of instances thus far this season in which they haven't utilized him to the correct capacity. This being said, regardless of what you choose to do in this overall circumstance, Harrison, Amari, whoever is on your team, one of those will probably eventually play over Higgins. Maybe. Otherwise, like Nico and London are going to be your 1 and 2. So pretty much we're just trying to figure out who do we want in the flex going forward. If I'm looking at these two offenses and I look at how much Josh Allen has struggled thus far this year in terms of getting the ball to the outside, like he's throwing the ball to Matt Collins and Keon Coleman. I would assume that if we inject Amari Cooper into this lineup, he would immediately find success because he is a legit player. Like this season with Deshaun Watson has been awful. But if you go back to late last year, the guy was dropping 20 points per game with Joe Flacco. So I'd imagine that Amari Cooper is the guy that I probably want to just keep inject into my lineup. And quite frankly, let him put up a couple big performances and then sell him for even more than Marvin Harrison Jr. That's what I'm looking at. I don't know if I want to like take him now off of the quote-unquote potential and move him. I want him to learn the offense, put up a couple big performances, then I'm shipping him off. That's the way that I look at it, Mad Dog. Thank you. Powerhouse sends in a question, says, I have a big problem in a Superflex league. I have Love and Fields, no backups on my bench. Russell Wilson is a free agent. How much fab should I put on him? Others might bid on him. I'd probably say in a Superflex format, you're dropping more than 30%, legitimately. Because if there's nobody else left on waivers to pick up to play in the future, if you are not to get Russell Wilson, honestly, maybe even 40%, if you're not to get Russell Wilson in this overall circumstance, it will force you to have to trade. And because you only have one quarterback in a Superflex format, everybody will try to fleece you. They're going to try to fleece you and, take advantage of you in the trade market. So in that circumstance, yeah, you're probably spending like 35 plus percent, 40% maybe just to be safe in order to ensure that you get, Fields is now starting quarterback. I can't believe they're replacing him. I still don't understand it. But hey, I guess, winning 66% of your games, what is it? 4-2 record? I guess that doesn't really suffice for the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is interesting. But yeah, I think it's probably like if there's other teams in your league that are like really struggling, like their QB2 is like Aiden O'Connell right now, you might have to just drop the whole, like you might have to go 50+%, maybe even higher. I think there's a lot of context that revolves around like the value of him based on the condition of other teams in your league besides yourself. Like you obviously need to highly value him because you need him. But additionally, if other people need him more than you because they are in even bigger distress at their QB2 position, then you might have to just drop like 60%, maybe even higher. Thank you, Powerhouse. Alex Santos says, got offered Ayuk for Amari Cooper. Also have Debo. You got offered Ayuk for Amari Cooper. Yeah, again, like I'm going to stay in the same position that I was with Mad Dog. I want to wait for Amari Cooper to pop off, and then I'm going to sell him for even higher. Because the way that offense is going to function, like, again, I'm just going to wait. That's the way that I would go about it. I'd wait. I'd let Amari Cooper really gain value within the offense, and then I'd ship him off after. Cinco2X sends in a question, says, check comments, please. Thank you very much. All right, Cinco, let me see where you're at. Cinco2X says, PPR. These guys are on my waivers. Rank them in order, please. Calvin Ridley, Tyler Lockett, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Demario Douglas. Also, is Slayton and Kraft. Okay, so let's answer the first question. All right, so if I'm going to order them top to bottom, highest priority to the lowest priority. Number one, this is a PPR format. Okay, number one, Tyler Lockett. Number two, Demario Douglas. Number three, Romeo Doubs. Number four, Christian Watson. Number five, Calvin Ridley. Straight away, boom, done. As for your next question, is Slayton and Kraft droppable? Slayton is, Kraft is not. I have Pitts at tight end. Doesn't matter. You keep Kraft because if he puts up another solid week here, okay. Or do I go pick up Njoku? Honestly, I think you keep Kraft and you pick up Njoku. If I was to try to pick one of the two rest of season, Kraft or Njoku, I'd say probably Njoku because he's done it before. He has been a relevant option in the past, and we'll see more target share going forward. But if I could, I would try to keep Kraft as well if somehow, some way you can make roster space to do so, because I want him to have another big week here and then ship him off in a potential trading option. Thank you, Cinco. I appreciate it. All right, moving on from Cinco's question, we have the following. Seta says, trade Tyrone Tracy, Chase Brown, and Mike I'm assuming Mike is Mike Evans because I don't know who else is Mike. For Kyron Williams, I have Jalen Hurts, I have Gibbs, Tracy, Bucky, Chase Brown, CD, Mike, Reed, BTJ. Okay, so based on what I'm looking at here, you're trading away so Tyrone Tracy's I wouldn't say he's fodder because there's still a good chance that he could end up winning the job there, but you're trading away a starting running back and a starting wide receiver in your league for one player. I don't love the trade, honestly. I think you're probably, looking at your team, CeeDee Lamb, Mike, Reed, BTJ, Smitty, you've got a lot of depth to where I guess you can abuse it to an extent. How would I fix this trade? Really, there's no way to fix this trade. If I was you, try to keep Tracy. Don't make it a 3-for-1. That's the only suggestion I can make to try to fix that. Otherwise, I don't like it. Thank you. Peanut Butter sends in a question, says, should I offer Wilson, Hunt for Cooper and Brian Robinson? Wilson and Hunt for Cooper and Brian Robinson. I don't mind that, to be honest. And the reason why I don't mind it is because, again, Hunt is going to disappear. Like, Isaiah Pacheco comes back week 10, week 11, and at that point, Hunt is gone. His value is completely evaporated. So at that point, Brian Robinson rest of the season, Cooper rest of the season for, a part-time player with Hunt until week 10, and then Garrett Wilson. Yeah, I'll take the Cooper and Brian Robinson side of that. No problem at all, Peanut Butter. Thank you. Julian sends in a question, says, I traded Montgomery and Evans for Neighbors. Man, you guys are okay. All right. I don't love it. Again, when you're trading away, like let's say, for example, this is a full PPR format, okay? When you're trading away a player like Montgomery, who's averaging nearly 18 points per game, and Evans, who is, obviously he's had really tough matchups. He already had his kryptonite week. He took on, what's his name as well? Patrick Surtain. Like, obviously, he's not going to have the greatest games in those circumstances. Even with that, still averaging 14 points per game. So when you're trading away like a 17, 18-point running back and a 14, 15, which is really going to be like a 16-point wide receiver rest season for one guy that's going to put up like 22, 25, let's not say 25. Let's say 22 to 24 points per game. I think it does a disservice to your team overall because you kill your depth and you're losing out on a lot of value that you're already positioned in. Again, Mike Evans has had 3 weeks this year in which he's put up over 23 fantasy points. That being said, looking at the rest of your team, you have Reed, Terry, Kamara, Jones, Kyron, and Pollard. Again, you can afford to make the deal. Do I love it? Not really, but you have a lot of running back depth, so I get the trade. Again, you have Kamara, Jones, Kyron, and Pollard, so you can get away with it. It might be a smaller league. That's why you got away with it as easily as you did, and because of it, that's fine. Because again, you're going forward, you're not going to miss not having Montgomery. You still have Kyron, Kamara, and Pollard, and Aaron Jones. So really, at the end of the day, it probably improves your team on a weekly basis, considering you've just got ridiculous depth across the board. If this is like a 12-team league, though, I'd be pissed. That would be a fleece. Thank you. C. Joe 2 says, should I trade Ayuk for Devontae Adams? Yeah, why not? I would do that. I'll take Devontae Adams as a season. Thank you. Gucci Han sends in a question, says, my guy, what's the word? Full PPR. Who's my wide receiver 2 between Amari Cooper and Juju Smith-Schuster? And thoughts on Nick Chubb returning this week or next? He should be returning this week. That's what the report said last week. So the assumption is that because he's practiced 2 weeks already, this will be the third full week of practice. That's pretty much his ramp up, and they're letting him loose this week. Now, as for Amari Cooper versus Juju Smith-Schuster this week, if we're talking about a full PPR format, I'm probably sticking with Juju just because I know the familiarity. I know that what I'm going to get out of the overall kind of situation. If Amari Cooper by the end of the week, if they end up coming out and saying like there's no limitations on him, he's playing the full game, then against Tennessee, I don't love the matchup still. Because, again, that's L'Jarius Sneed. So I'd probably still stick with Juju in that circumstance this week. Thank you. Fernando Perez is in a full PPR. Drop Kincaid for Ingram. I have Ferguson on a bye. Drop Kincaid for Ingram. Yeah, in terms of rest of season value, yeah, Ingram is more valuable than Kincaid. Thank you. Ahmed Khan sends in a question. Says, James Cook and McBride for Breece Hall and Sutton. I already have Love, Kamara, Kyron Williams, CD, Cup, Bowers, Deontay Johnson, BTJ, and Swift. Full PPR, Breece over Cook rest season. Yes, the answer is Breece is absolutely over Cook rest of season. My only issue with this trade is that where is your tight end? Oh, you have Bowers. Okay, so you can get away with this. That's fine. I don't have an issue with that. Again, you've got a pretty stacked roster. Are you giving up too much to an extent? Potentially. Again, James Cook, in comparison to Breece Hall rest of the season, under the assumption that both of them stay healthy at a full capacity, I don't think they're that separated in terms of their overall upside of value, assuming, of course, James Cook continues his reign of success, especially down in the red zone. But giving up McBride in order to just kind of solidify another RB in this circumstance, get healthy in that position, I don't mind it. Thank you. Johnny Del Rosso says, thoughts on trading away London or Mike Evans for Hall? I have Swift, Najee, and Christian McCaffrey. Yeah, I don't mind. If you can give away Mike Evans instead of London, that would be preferred. London's looked incredible this season. Again, he is the number one target that we anticipated him to be, and he is significantly more consistent as of right now. So Mike Evans, if you can get rid of him and get Breece Hall in return, absolutely get it done. That would be prime. Thank you. Jacob sends in a question, says, open to doing short form content. I work with big podcasts, can edit from long videos. Listen, I appreciate it, Jacob. At the moment, not really interested. That's not really where I kind of want to focus on my efforts. I've thought about doing it myself in the past. I've attempted it. It's just not something that I'm really interested in at the moment. I'm just more of like a long form and live stream kind of platform exclusive at the moment. Thanks, Jacob. I appreciate it. Moving on to Keelan, who sends in a question. Says, I need 2 flex full PPR. Choices are Pickens, Hubbard, Bigsby, and McConkey. All right, let's see here. If we're playing 2 of these potential options this week, Hubbard has to play because he's just been far too good to bench. And then if it's between Pickens taking on the Jets, which I don't love, or Bigsby taking on New England, I think I'm just playing Bigsby and Hubbard just based on the matchups alone. They're just in so much more advantageous positions. And Russell Wilson, first week back against the Jets, I don't know. I don't get it, but I'm not playing Pickens or McConkey in this circumstance. I'll take both running backs there, Keelan. Anakin Woman sends in a question. Says, I got Josh Allen and Marvin Harrison. Guy in my league has Kyler and Amari Cooper. My Marvin for his Cooper to stack. Yeah, I don't mind that. That's fine. Again, I think in the long term, or more in the short term, what I'm looking to do with Amari Cooper is let him have big performances and then ship him off. That's what I want to do. Because there's still the impending factor of like last season, late in that year, with this same offensive coordinator, Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis disappeared for multiple game stretches. So I'm worried of something like that occurring again. So I just want to get some quick, good performances out of Amari, then I'm shipping him off. Thank you. Western Good sends in a question, says pick 3. Christian Watson, Juju Smith-Schuster, Xavier Worthy, Pop Douglas, or Jacoby Myers in a PPR. Okay, so if I'm picking 3 out of those available, Jacoby Myers, Juju Smith, and Pop Douglas are the most valuable going forward and for this week. Thank you. Football is Life says, I'm poor today. Questions in the chat. Brother, listen, you don't have to send in supers. You don't have to send in supers at all. It's just a matter of priority. All right, Football is Life says the following. Let's see here. Says, now my team in a full PPR 10-team league is Josh Allen, Saquon Barkley, Jordan Mason, Christian McCaffrey, Tony Pollard, Amon-Ra, Mike Evans, A.J. Brown, Bowers. Okay, there's really nothing to do with this team. A few randos, Juju, okay. Stay as put for the rest of the season, or do I make any trades? I mean, look, at this point, there's not really a trade that you can... okay. You could theoretically take McCaffrey and Mason and go trade it for a running back. 2 for 1. You're basically giving somebody the keys to the San Francisco Kingdom, and you can go get 1 running back in exchange for it. You could. That's up to you on whether you want to approach it in that capacity. I've seen multiple people already ask me this season and get it done where they sent away, Mason and McCaffrey and got Saquon in return. You already have Saquon in this circumstance, so I don't think you can go and knock on Derrick Henry door and get that deal done or anything of that exchange. So you can just hold within those overall position. I don't see that your team needs anything. There's no necessities. You just have studs across the board. And quite frankly, as long as they stay healthy, you're good to go. If in your position, you already have Waddle, so that's kind of like your late term kind of investment for when Tua comes back. You don't need to go ahead and go after a Tyreek or H-Hen or if anything like that. So you're good to go. I don't change anything. Football is life. You got a pretty stud team across the board, from top to bottom, quarterback to tight end. Thank you. All right. Sar Nicholas says, trade Debo and Breece Hall plus Kyler for Josh Allen, Chuba Hubbard, and Ayuk. I will take the Brees Hall, Debo Samuel, and Kyler side rest of the season. That's the side that I prefer. Thank you, Nicholas. Dylan sends in a question. Says full PPR Pollard for Najee Cooper team. Pollard for Najee Cooper team in chat. Got it. Let me see if I can find it, Dylan. Hopefully I can't control F. Dylan. Dylan says, this is a different Dylan. Okay, maybe this is the same Dylan, but I don't see the team in the chat. There's another question from Dylan who says DK or Adams rest of season. I'd personally rather have Devontae Adams over DK Metcalf. Now, as for I don't see your team. If you can do me a favor and type it in the live chat, I'd be greatly appreciated. Dylan, as for the context of the question, Pollard for Najee and Cooper. Pollard is a back that is unless you're desperately in need of wide receiver, I don't make this deal because I think Pollard is really good and is only going to continue to dominate considering how much Tyjae Spears gets injured. So once you give me the context, I'll have a little bit more of a solidified opinion on the matter, whether or not we go which way or the other. But right now I'm thinking Pollard in a bubble without context to your team. Octavio sends in a question, says in a 10-team full PPR, we're 4-2 currently. Burrow, Garrett Wilson, Higgins, Kenneth Walker, Bijan, McBride, Mason, Ben Olave, Cup, Amari, Moss, Braylon, Rico, Algier. Any suggestions on how to improve? I mean, look, at this point, as soon as Cup gets healthy, right, your wide receiver core of Garrett Wilson, Higgins, and Cup are going to just be, those are going to be your starters, right? K9 and Bijan, really, unless you're like somehow making a 2-for-1 trade or you find a team that's super desperate, like I don't think you can make upgrades from that. Like maybe somehow, some way you can take an Amari Cooper and Kenneth Walker and get a Saquon Barkley. I don't know. Maybe somehow, some way. But considering the circumstance that you're in with Burrow at quarterback, McBride at tight end, I'm not replacing either of the two. And really, I don't see anything else that has to be improved. Like Mason is going to sit there without Christian McCaffrey. You could theoretically take Mason and try to move it to the McCaffrey team to get value in exchange because eventually you won't be playing him. Like it's either he's going to be replaced by McCaffrey or you're just going to have better options with Amari Cooper and Kupp coming off of your bench sooner rather than later. So ultimately with a 4-2 team, unless you can somehow 2-for-1 for massive upgrades, or the McCaffrey manager wants Mason for something, I guess Rico Dowdle has the most value outside of Amari Cooper on your bench. I already include Olave and Kupp within your lineup. I guess you could theoretically potentially Tyreek Hill, Devon Achane before Tua's return. That could always be within the realm of possibility there. But otherwise, a pretty strong team. Zolbu sends in a question, nothing attached to it, probably in the chat. Let me see if I can go find it. Let's see here. Zolbu, where are you, my man? Zolbu, if you can do me a favor and type in the chat, it'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Okay, so now we need to move on and find Dylan's question, because I had asked Dylan for the context of his team and maybe he typed it in the live chat. Anything from Dylan? Let's see. Actually, there's nothing from Dylan. Okay, so we'll just keep it as is. All right, Zolbu, I don't see anything. If you could do me a favor, type in the chat, it'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you, Zolbu. All right, moving on from that, we have a question that came in from Aiden0815, who says, I just traded Addison for Higgins. Congratulations, you just fleeced somebody. Somebody just sold very low on Higgins and bought high on Addison, I guess, because Hawkinson's going to come back either this week or next week, and that's going to absolutely impact Addison's upside. Anyway, Alex Reese sends in a question. Says, in a Superflex 6-point per passing touchdown league, what two quarterbacks would you go with rest of the season? I'm currently 2-4. My options are Richardson, Stafford, May, and Russ. I can only roster 2. Yeah, look, at this point, rest of season, I'd rather have Stafford and Richardson because, quite frankly, I don't trust Drake May, and I don't trust that Russell Wilson will stay the starting quarterback there. I know that Richardson has to stay the starting quarterback until he's injured. And at that point, you have the automatic pickup of Flacco every single time. As for Russ, I cannot guarantee that he can, let's say he shows up in this game and throws 3 picks. It's over. There's no way that they stay with him, right? Unless they're completely inside. Yeah, I just stick with Stafford and Richardson in that format. Let's see here. Keelan Simpkins says, did my question come through? Yeah, it did. Maybe, I'm sure you heard it. I'm playing Hubbard and Bigsby, by the way. Keelan, thank you. All right. Sean K says full PPR, Hawkinson or Kincaid rest season. I'd rather have Hawkinson. Thank you. Muhammad Slim sent in a question, nothing attached. Let me see if I can find your question, Muhammad. Let's look up Slim in the live chat. I don't see anything from you, Muhammad. So if you could do me a favor and you also type in the chat, it'd be greatly appreciated. I see Zolbu's question, who says Dak is on a bye. Who should I pick up in terms of a streaming option for week 7? Bo Nix, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, Aaron Rodgers. Done. I think Aaron Rodgers might be your... Oh, you have Darnold as well? Okay, so this is what I'm thinking. It's probably... And you have Matthew Stafford. Jeez, there's a lot of good options here available. Okay, so for this week alone, I'd probably end up going with... Man, I kind of want to just roll with Rodgers. I think Rodgers going forward with this Devontae Adams addition is the most valuable quarterback of... At least the ones that are mentioned in your question here, Zolbu. That's kind of the direction I want to lean in. Now that he has Rodgers, Garrett Wilson, Lazard... I have a hard time thinking that he won't be the best. Now, Sam Darnold against Detroit secondary is very appealing. So if Hawkinson plays, I could justify that. Honestly, against Pittsburgh. Okay, so this is what I'm going to say. I think Sam Darnold, because they play against Detroit, is probably the best play of the group. But I want to play Aaron Rodgers, okay? So the brain versus the heart. The heart says I want to play Aaron Rodgers. The brain says you probably should play Sam Darnold. Coming off of the bye week with a full week of preparation, going against that Detroit secondary. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Did Muhammad Slim send in his question? There it is. Says, hey, Andrew, rest of season, full PPR. I'm getting offered Tyreek Hill and James Conner for Amon-Ra St. Brown and Laporta. Thoughts? I have Alvin Kamara and legit no other running backs and wide receivers. I have Amari Cooper and Tank Dell. So you're being offered Tyreek Hill and James Conner, and because you have no other running backs, you're kind of being forced into a position to where you have to make this trade. You have crafted tight end. Look, ultimately, I would probably take the deal, even if you did have running backs. I think once we get into a position where Tua is back, Tyreek Hill and Amon-Ra are relatively equal value, but getting James Conner for Laporta, I think is pretty clutch if you're able to do so. So I'll take it. That's fine. And especially considering your desperate need of running back, I'm cool with it. Thank you, Mohammed. Appreciate it. All right, let's see here. Let's scroll back into the chat. Again, for those of you who are joining us, welcome. If you guys sent in a super chat just moments ago, again, I'm still trying to catch up on those. Appreciate your patience. Thank you. Moving on to a question that comes in from Anakin, who sends in a follow-up. He says, Ayuk and Zach Moss and maybe Christian Kirk for McLaurin and Goff. Yeah, if you can get away with it, then you should. Yes. I'm fine with that. Again, Moss, rest of the season, I don't see having very much value unless something happens to Chase Brown. And Christian Kirk is now a relatively startless. I don't know. I think he can only start in specific matchups, mainly because of Ingram. Ayuk for McLaurin, again, I prefer McLaurin rest of the season. And yeah, you get Goff in that scenario. Why not? That's your starter rest of the season, right? Thank you. Jonathan sends in a question. Says, Amari Cooper or Devontae Adams rest of the season? I'd rather have Devontae Adams. Thank you. Jeremy Melendez says, first super chat. Didn't show. Question in the comments. Got it, Jeremy. Let's see here. Jeremy Melendez says, I have Wilson and Adams. Okay, so Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams. Gibbs and Montgomery. Okay. Keenan Allen and Swift. Okay. Was offered Bijan and Ayuk for Adams and Montgomery. No. God, that's tough. Was offered Chubb for Adams straight up. Nope, not interested in that either. Want to avoid too many players on the same team. Okay, I get where you're coming from. Logically, it makes sense for you. But in this circumstance, what you are being offered is not good enough compensation for what you have to give away. So in this circumstance, I'd say no to both trades until somebody wants to give you a better offer, which would have to look like, yeah, it would have to look way different because the consistency of Montgomery in that first trade really just makes it off balance because Adams is, in my opinion, a way better option than Ayuk rest season. And then as for Nick Chubb for Adams, I don't want any pieces that have to do with that Cleveland Browns offense unless it's Njoku or Chubb is my RB4, right? I'm not starting Chubb unless I'm really desperate in some of these scenarios or it's a really good matchup. So yeah, in this circumstance, let's keep it as is and let's just stand pat. I understand you're trying to avoid the risk of having too many players from the same team, but these guys are just ballers, so I wouldn't freak out too much about it. Or just wait for a future trade to come in line. Thank you. All right, we move on to a question that came in from Brandon McDaniel, who says, would you drop Juju, Pickens, or Pittman for Pop Douglas? I wouldn't drop any of the three, honestly. As it currently stands, I do believe that there's a chance that Drake May can continue to tunnel target. Wow. Funnel target. Wow. That is brain lag beyond belief. Let's take a moment of silence for my brain. Thank you. All right, so to answer your question, Juju, Pickens, Pittman, I'd probably just rather keep them both, all three of those options. The one that I would want to drop, theoretically, is Pittman, but I want to give him another chance considering how well he has played with Flacco. Maybe from the sideline, Anthony Richardson has noticed, wait, maybe I should just throw the ball to this guy. Let's hope that's the case, but I'd keep what you have as of right now. Anonymous sends in a question, says, in a 14-team league, 2 flex, Kyron, Javonte Williams, AJ Brown, DJ Moore, BTJ, Downs, Mooney, Dobbs, prioritize Davis or Tucker long-term? Davis. This is, here's the thing. I wouldn't actually put in a waiver for either of the two, considering you don't have Cook and you don't need Tucker. So DeMario Douglas and Juju are just better for you in terms of the long-term play. You like DeMario, but you need a running back. Then if you need the running back, then you go after Davis. You go after Ray Davis. Otherwise, DeMario could end up being a guy that you could trade. I mean, like in a full PPR right now, when I think about DeMario Douglas, what he's done as of late, like obviously he's done it kind of under wraps. The last three of the last 4 weeks, 14.8, 11.9, 21.2. Like he could still be a tradable option to where you can get a running back in exchange. Maybe you trade DeMario Douglas for like an Austin Eckler kind of esque player. You could get away with maybe something like that. I think that's more value than what potentially Davis can provide if, in fact, James Cook is back already this week. All right. C. Harles had sent in a question, but I don't see the question. There it is. Okay. It's like Charles, but C. Harles. C. Harles. Either way. Amari Cooper for my Deontay Johnson PPR. We have the current offer on the table. I think I take Amari Cooper there. Yeah, I would probably take Amari Cooper. Now, this being said, expect this week for you not to get many points from Amari Cooper. So this is what I will put as a contingency asterisk on top of this overall conversation. If you have a losing record, okay, if you are 2-4, 1-5, you don't make this deal. You play Deontay Johnson against the Washington Commanders because you know you're going to get 15 plus points this week. If you take Amari Cooper, do not expect him to do much against the Tennessee Titans because wide receivers typically don't. But again, that is mainly a matchup thing. Rest of season, I'd probably rather have Amari Cooper. So if you could survive with it, you don't have a losing record, and you're like, listen, I'll take whatever I can get. I just want a better team for the future. Then yeah, that's probably the direction I go in. I trust Josh Allen way more than I trust Andy Dalton rest of the season. I'll tell you that much. Okay, moving on to the next question that comes in from LDMND, who says, PPR, feel like I need to shore up my wide receivers. I have Kyler, Breece, Kamara, Mason, Marvin Harrison, BTJ, Wando Robinson. Trade Kyler plus Breece Hall for CJ and Nico. Okay, so shoring up your wide receivers does not get accomplished with that trade. That just puts you on a really bad timeline of losing multiple weeks. So you'd basically be trading away Breece Hall and Kyler Murray. Sure, maybe you get an upgraded quarterback going to CJ Stroud, but you get 3 more empty weeks of no Nico Collins. And then additionally, let's look at the Texans schedule. Additionally, the Texans have a week 14 bye. So in the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games, 4 of them, you will not have Nico Collins. So you could theoretically put yourself in a position where those 4 weeks are just defaulted into losses because you don't have Breece Hall in them. And it could end up killing you. I'm not as keen on making a deal for an injured player when I'm giving up more value, right? You're losing this trade objectively because of the loss of that value, of the 3 extra weeks that Nico is going to be out, if not more, if there's a re-aggravation because it's a hamstring soft tissue injury. So at this point, I don't take it. I think there's another way to go in about this. and it's not in the case of moving Breece Hall. If it is moving Breece Hall, it's going after top tier wide receiver like an Amon-Ra and just going 1-for-1. I want a player that's healthy now rather than one that's healthy in a month. Thank you. Sven sends in a question. Thank you, Sven. Very generous. Says 3-3 in a 12-man half PPR league. I just traded away Baker and Sutton for Tony Pollard. Perfect. Fantastic. Love it. They went and dropped Kyler, picked him up, and flip. Another option on the wire. Yeah, I mean, look, you'd probably wait for Kyler to put up a solid performance, and then you'd flip him. Otherwise, if you can do it now, might as well. My other options on the wire are Chandler, Pop Douglas, Minnesota's defense, Dobbs. Okay. They went and dropped Kyler. Okay. Look, if I'm in your position and you think that you can flip Kyler, then sure. Otherwise, if you need that wide receiver, you go for Pop Douglas. If you don't have a solid defense that you can start every week and you're not streaming properly, then you just pick up Minnesota and ride them for the rest of the season. Otherwise, I think that's a great trade overall. Well done, Sven. The S-Box sends in a question. Says in a 14-team full PPR, I have Goff and Love, Barkley, Aaron Jones, Eckler, Ford, Devontae Smith, Juju, Kupp, Dobbs, McLeod, Kelsey, and Schultz. Any changes that you'd make? Yeah, I dropped Schultz now that he's pretty much not needed for your team. I don't think you need McLeod, but it's a 14-team league, so I understand it. Same thing with Schultz. I get it because of the 14-team format. So actually, you know what? Now that I look at it, maybe let's not be too eager to drop anything. Let's see how we can improve this team just initially off of surface level value. Devontae Smith is a keep. Cooper Kupp is a keep. Juju, as of right now, until otherwise noted, is a keep. So is Barkley. So is Goff. I guess Goff and Love, one of those two can be traded. That's kind of up to you. You have to find a team in your 14-team league that is struggling at quarterback. Maybe you send them one of those two plus Eckler because Eckler does provide value and you get a running back in exchange for him. Obviously, it's very dependent on the idea that somebody needs a quarterback and is willing to take a quarterback and Eckler, which again, thus far this season in a full PPR has had over 10 points every game. So again, he's a pretty valuable piece there. They'd get a quarterback, they'd get a solid RB2, RB3 flexible option, and they give you a running back in exchange. That's what I'm thinking off of the top of my head as of right now. TJ9 Anthony sends in a question, and so does Jorge Perez, and so does Lou, but none of them had messages attached to it. So Andrew will go fishing and see if we can find it. Okay, so let's find TJ9. Maybe it's T9J. I don't even know. Okay, maybe I'm just dumb. What the heck did it even say? Where was the question? Yeah, it was TJ9. Okay, TJ9, if you can do me a favor, type in the live chat what your question was, because it's not in there right now. Jorge, let me see if I can find your question, and then we need Lou. Okay. So let's go ahead and let's find these questions while we wait. All right, so let's see. Did Lou type in the chat? Lou, thank you. Says, in a PPR format, I'm currently 4-2. I have one flex league, okay? I have Mayfield, Bijan, Mixon, Moore, Kincaid, Pickens, Shakir, Mostert, Murray, Hubbard, Nakua, trade Hubbard for Laporta, or Pittman and Hawkinson, or T. Higgins. Okay, hold up. Let me reabsorb all the context. You have Kincaid as your current tight end. You'd theoretically be upgrading by sending away Hubbard. Okay, so if you send away Hubbard and get Laporta, that's okay. And you also would theoretically, or you can do Pittman and Hawkinson. Do you need Pittman? That's the question. Let's see here. You have Kincaid, you have Moore, you have Pickens, you have Shakir. So you have more Pickens. You get Pittman in this overall circumstance, which I don't love, but I think it's okay in this circumstance. Or you go after T. Higgins outright and you keep Kincaid. There are many of ways that we can go about this. The way that I prefer to go about this is probably, if I'm in this position and you have the roster kind of mobility to do so, I want the Hawkinson side of this deal, Lou. That's the one that I prefer out of the three. Thank you. All right, let's find Jorge Perez's question. Jorge, you in here? Jorge Perez says, hi, Andrew. In a full PPR, I'm lost at tight end position. I dropped Andrews and I picked up Conklin, and Andrews finally showed up. Yeah, of course. You were the one that had to sacrifice for the rest of us. Thank you. Should I keep it as is or try to go get Andrews back? I also secured Hawkinson on the IR. I think it'd probably be best to go pick up Andrews, drop Conklin, and then just roll with Andrews and Hawkinson rest of the season. Thank you. Moving on to TJ9. Let's see if he ended up, she typed in the chat, said, it's Anthony. Says, Tony Pollard or Tank or Aaron Jones this week in the flex. I'm not playing Aaron Jones there, so it's between Tank Dell versus the Green Bay Packers or Tony Pollard versus the Buffalo Bills. If it's a full, I probably play Tony Pollard over the bunch. That's where my initial thought is. As for the second best option, it is Tank Dell. I'd probably own. Do I feel comfortable playing Tank Dell ahead of him? Probably not. I think I just play Tony Pollard as of right now. He's just been too good as of late. Thank you, Anthony. Appreciate it. All right, let's see here. Scrolling back up, we had a question from Aaron Roscoe. Aaron, hope you're doing well. Says in a full PPR, Kraft or Njoku rest season. I'd rather have Njoku rest season. Sean K says Tracy or Irving rest this season. Okay, so look, that one's tough because Bucky Irving, there's already been a coach's statement in the past where it says that he deserves more touches, XYZ, like we're going to get him more implemented, and he's played very well this season. He's been highly efficient. I haven't seen an interview or anything of that capacity from the head coach and / play caller of the Giants regarding Tracy, getting more touches or taking workload away from Devin Singletary once he returns. So until I can see something of that nature, Irving's probably the best case scenario. All right, it's Ovabitch sends in a question. Says, should I trade Jahmyr Gibbs for Kenneth Walker? The only reason I'm doubting about doing the trade is because I already have had A.J. Brown, Waddle, and Gibbs go through bye weeks. I don't think the bye week is the reason why I wouldn't take it. I wouldn't take it because I think Gibbs actually outproduces him. Now, obviously, Montgomery has been the biggest issue to his overall potential for exceeded upside. But if it's me, I mean, again, in terms of long-term, like rest of season value, I think they're very equivalent, assuming they both stay healthy. I do give the slight edge. Well, actually, you know what? With Kenneth Walker getting all that receiving workload as of late, he is relevant in pretty much every format. Honestly, I don't mind taking it. I don't mind it. I don't even care about the bye week. Kenneth's value in that circumstance has been really high. Can Jahmyr Gibbs outproduce him? Absolutely. But he will always have Montgomery in his back pocket, which in turn makes him less valuable. TanFam sends in a follow-up, says in a half PPR, should I trade JJ plus Mooney for Josh Allen and Evans? JJ and Mooney for Josh Allen and Evans. What's your quarterback? You have Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones. My other wide receivers are Kupp. Okay, so with this context in its position, do I want to take Josh Allen and just let it ride, or do I? Dude, I don't want to trade away JJ though. That's the issue. My other wide receivers are Kupp, Jameson, Williams, Pickens, and Leggett. Okay, the only way that I'd ever probably take this deal, TanFam, is if you can move. Like, okay, so you drop Daniel Jones for this, right? And then you would take Anthony Richardson and you'd have to potentially flip him in a trade to get some sort of value in return because you don't need them both on roster. But that's a multi-week like future endeavor that you'd have to go. Like it's an undertaking to have to do all that kind of jazz. Otherwise, you stick with these quarterbacks that are just inconsistent. Do I want to trade away my 20-point wide receiver? Yeah, let's do it. Your quarterbacks are pretty at the moment. They're not very inspiring. You just hold on to Anthony Richardson, hope that he flips a complete 180, and then you can sell him off. Thank you. Frank 2X says, GB has a lot of wide receivers. Drop Kraft for Hunter Henry. You could. Do I love it? No. Again, even with a full passing game script, we saw only 5 targets go in the direction of Hunter Henry, which I don't love. Tucker Kraft, yes, they have a lot of receiving options, but Reed and Wicks got injured and Musgrave's on the IR, so keep that in mind. So I'd keep Kraft, to be honest, but that's just my way of going about it. If you can find another way to pick up Henry and have them both on roster, probably would be better. Mike sends in a question, says, I traded Moore and J.K. Dobbins for Christian McCaffrey and Ayuk. Squad is Josh Allen, Hall, Dell, Jamison Williams, Pickens, Ingram, Nakua, Keenan Allen, Myers. Any suggestions? I'm 2-4 right now. So you traded DJ Moore and J.K. Dobbins for Christian McCaffrey and Ayuk, and you're currently 2-4. So the issue that I have with this scenario is that you are betting on McCaffrey returning in early November. The issue that also relies within that situation is that early November isn't until 3 more games have surpassed. So you can theoretically have just traded away players that could have played for you for the next 2 to 3 weeks here, depending on bye weeks, for a player that could end up joining your roster by the time you're 2-7. That is the issue I find with the trade, Mike. Trading for Christian McCaffrey when you don't have Jordan Mason is a kiss of death. I don't want to seem so bleak about it, but I don't know if that's the move. Ultimately, I don't think it helps you to have Christian McCaffrey because you basically just made a 2-for-1. Now, if you can survive, you win out the rest of the games, and then McCaffrey returns, then you're great. But, dude, you're going to, like, you don't even have Nakua back yet. You have Keenan hitting the bye. Like, again, I'm hoping that you can clutch out some wins here in the next couple weeks so you don't end up 2-7 and you're more like 4-5 by the time you get Christian McCaffrey back, because by that point, 9 games in the year, you have 5 left. You have weeks 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14 in those 5 remaining games. Again, all you would theoretically have to do is win 4 of them to make the playoffs in a 12-team league, 6 teams making the playoffs. 4 out of 5 games, you got to have an 80% win rate by the time that Christian McCaffrey comes back. And you have to hope he actually is at a full capacity. Very risky decision-making you've made. That's all I can say. Jordy Peasy says, wrote in regular. Okay, got it. Let me see if I can find it, Jordy. Jordy, where is it? Jordy, I don't see the question. If you could do me a favor and retype it out, that'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you, Jordy. Until Jordy types it back out, we will continue on with answering questions. Thank you again. All right, let's see here. After Jordy, we had Nathan Salazar, who says, panic and trade Garrett Wilson? Nah. In a full PPR, I have amazing wide receivers. I need running back help. Okay, so if in this is, okay, you have Stevenson, Rashad White, Kyron Williams, and Gibson. Okay. Yeah, I mean, at this point, if you would like to move Garrett Wilson, you can. I don't think Garrett Wilson is someone that is going to lose a significant volume of value. Again, he's going against number 2 quarterbacks henceforth, which is only going to give him more opportunity getting open. Will there be a lot of targets given in the direction of Devontae Adams? Absolutely, because he deserves them, because he's going to be open. But in those other alternative opportunities, Garrett Wilson will be, tearing apart these defenses. Anyway, moving Garrett Wilson is not a bad idea. If you can get a player of the caliber of a Tony Pollard, I would say absolutely, let's get it done. If you were in the business of buying Achane, that could also work, but I think maybe giving Garrett Wilson for him is a little bit too overpriced. Maybe you can make it a 2-for-2, so where it can balance out a little bit more. But yeah, I don't mind the idea of moving Garrett if you're going to get a running back, because you desperately do need it. Fernando sends in a question, says, start Evan Ingram or Brock Bowers, Murray or Baker. Okay, so Baker probably plays every week over Murray until otherwise noted. As for Bowers and Ingram, considering the New England matchup, Bowers taking on Bowers taking on the Rams, that's a really good matchup. Like, that's an auto play. Now, I could end up convincing myself, Fernando, depending on who sits in your flex position, playing Evan Ingram over them, though. Marvin Lewis sends in a question, says, both quarterbacks on a bye. I need to stream one. Drake May, Tyler Huntley, Deshaun Watson, Will Levis, or Spencer Rattler. Out of the following options, I'm legitimately playing Drake May against Jacksonville's terrible defense. Thank you. Mo Money says, traded Baker and Amari for Adams earlier this week. Okay, I mean, trading away Baker is tough because he's a top 5 quarterback, but I get it. Roy Powell says, traded away Derek, Henry, okay, and Rico for Jahmyr Gibbs and Kupp. Rest of my, okay, I don't mind that. That's fine. Running backs are H. Okay, cool. Yeah, listen, I think that's fine. Again, you got to get Kupp back this week. I hope he plays, because if he does, your team is really strong. And I hope, for your sake as well, you get JT back as well, Roy. I have no issue with the trade at all. Thank you. Sven says, context in the chat regarding my previous super. Okay. Let me go ahead and let me see if Jordy Peasy has sent in a question. If he did, then I will get to Sven after. Jordy, where are you? Why can't I find your question? Nothing in the chat, Jordy? Okay, let's see if I can get to Sven. Okay, Sven. Okay, so you typed that in, Sven, but there's no context because you probably typed it in way earlier. Again, you got to remember that the chat updates consistently to the point to where if you typed it in 5 minutes ago, it's probably gone. So do me a favor. I'm going to write both of your names down, Jordy and Sven. Type in what you were supposed to send. Thank you. Moving on to a question that comes in from Green, who says, in a full PPR, Terry Green says, full PPR league, how do you rank Demario Douglas, Amari Cooper, Juju Smith-Schuster, or Josh Downs for waiver priority? Okay, cool. Amari Cooper's number 1. Juju's number 2. Downs number 3. And Demario Douglas, number 4. That would be the order. You have St. Brown, Shakir, Wandale Robinson. Got it. So, again, if I was in your position, I'd actually be in a very comfortable spot. Keeping Brown, keeping Wandale Robinson. I'd even be willing to drop Shakir just to get maybe Amari Cooper and Juju, and maybe even Douglas or Downs in this scenario. But again, Cooper, Juju, Downs, Douglas, that's the order. Thank you. Frank2X says streaming quarterbacks, drop Caleb for Drake May. I also have Olave. Drop Olave instead. No, we're not dropping Olave. I have Pickens, Puka, Ayuk, Zay, Reed, and Worthy. If I'm dropping anybody, okay, look, here's the thing. Olave can be placed in your IR once he goes out on Thursday. That being said, I don't think anybody in your league is going to pick up Drake May to start them instead of you. So you could probably move Olave to your IR, not have to drop Caleb, and then just pick up Drake May. Now, if that is not a potential option and you're not going to start Drake May Caleb Williams for the remainder of the season, Caleb, let me see here. Bears schedule. Let me just want to kind of preemptively figure out where he's at in week 8 and beyond. Week 8 plays against Washington. Week 9 against Arizona. Week 10 against New England. I mean, again, I'd probably keep Caleb Williams. I'd move Olave to the IR spot and keep him moving. If that cannot work, you already have a filled-in IR spot. I'm keeping Caleb and I'm dropping Xavier Worthy. No joke. Thank you. Pitch Herndon sends in a question. Says, how do I save my season? I'm 2-4 in a 10-team league. I have Kirk Cousins, Anthony Richardson, Devon Achane, Montgomery, Dobbins, Chase Brown. Okay, got it. You have Brooks, Amon-Ra, Reed, Dell, Smitty, Worthy, Puka, Laporta. Okay, so this is how you save your season. You have 4 starting running backs. You have Achane, Montgomery, Dobbins, Chase Brown. Okay. You also have 4 starting wide receivers. Amon-Ra, Reed, Dell, Smitty. And you also have the potential of Puka, which will eventually return. In a league in which you cannot start 2 flex options or 3 wide receivers, you are taking one of these running backs or one of these wide receivers and going and securing an actual top-tier quarterback. You are going after a big gun. Like I'm going to get Josh Allen. Like I'm giving away Kirk Cousins or Anthony Richardson with like a Dobbins or a Chase Brown or a Devontae Smith or a Jaden Reed, and I'm going to get a Josh Allen, a Lamar Jackson, a Jaden Daniels, or something of that extent, right? That's what I want. I want a top Jalen Hurts. I'm getting a top-tier quarterback. That will do you a service because you can't play all these players. And then if you play all these players, so be it. Keep it as is. Keep it rolling and just hope for the better times. Again, you are 3rd in points for and number 1 in points against. So you have a really strong team. You and I both know that. But I want to get a better quarterback on this team. So I'm taking one of these quarterbacks. I'm taking one of these players. Even if it has to be like I'm trading away Montgomery. Okay, whatever. I don't want Kirk Cousins on my team rest season. I'll take Josh Allen in that circumstance. I'll take Lamar Jackson. I'll take Jalen Hurts. Just give me somebody that I can start blindly for the remainder of the year. Harold Millard says in a half PPR Montgomery, Cook, and BTJ for Lamb and Christian Kirk. Sorry, I'd rather have Montgomery, Cook, and BTJ rest of the season. Harold, thank you. All right, before we get to Tommy Gunn's question, let me go back to the live chat and see if I can find the questions from Jordy. Jordy Peasy says Jordy Peasy says quarterbacks Anthony Richardson, wide receivers are CeeDee Lamb, Marvin Harrison Jr., Olave, Wicks, Swift, Montgomery, Javonte, Ford, Brooks. Tight end is Evan Ingram. No one wants to trade really. What do I do to salvage this week? Type of players to look. I mean, look, if no one wants to trade, then I mean, what can I tell you? Look, if you want to salvage the week, like let's say you're in a really bad spot, like you're 1-5, 2-4, you can trade CeeDee Lamb and just try to go get 2 players in exchange for him. You can sell CeeDee Lamb and Olave and Marvin Harrison. They're all out this week. You theoretically just go and ship away players to bring in like a 2-for-1. Like you'd send away CeeDee Lamb and you'd bring back like a Devontae Smith plus Wan'Dale Robinson just to give yourself a fighting chance. Otherwise, you have to hit the waivers and pray, which honestly, based on your team, you're not going to really be able to drop anybody. Ford needs to be dropped though. That being said, I will say Ford needs to get off this roster immediately. But that would be it. You'd have to make trades to get value in return. So you'd have to be making moves right now, trading Olave, Harrison, and CeeDee in order to get wide receivers in exchange to, I'm not saying sell them low. I'm saying get equivalent value in return to give yourself a fighting chance this week. And even if you are getting lesser individuals, maybe you're getting 2 back in return for CeeDee Lamb, even if they're lesser, I will take it because at least for the long term or for the short term, additionally, it'll give you a chance to win instead of just outright forfeit within the week because of all the injuries that you've accrued with the bye week situation. All right, then we move on to a question that came in from, let's see here. Did we get Sven to give me more context? Sven, where you at? Sven says, I traded Baker and Sutton for Tony Pollard. I dropped Kyler. They dropped Kyler. 2-for-1 seemed, yeah, okay. We took care of that one. We talked about that, though. Only one of 2 teams need a quarterback rest of the season. Jalen Hurts is the team is Jalen Hurts. Yeah, but that team doesn't need it. So yeah, then you don't need to go pick up Kyler. You'd either go after Pop Douglas in a PPR, or you'd go after Minnesota's defense if that's what you're looking for. But I mean, like, Minnesota's defense isn't great this week, but you would theoretically have them as your starter rest of the season, which would honestly be in a benefit to you. So it's probably Minnesota instead of Kyler. All right, let's move on to a question that came in from Tommy Gunn, who says, should I keep Jonathan Brooks, being how Hubbard is doing so good? Plus, Hubbard is going to be on a 3-week window to improve himself. Yeah, Jonathan Brooks is not going to play until week 9. That's what I read today. So as of right now, probably in a situation where you can keep Jonathan Brooks, but you won't see value out of him until way later down the line. So if you want to trade him to the Hubbard manager, you can, theoretically. Rockout says, pick up Christian Watson, Tucker, Gurendo, or Deontay Johnson. I don't know who else D Johnson would be. So if Deontay Johnson or somehow, there's no way that's Deontay Johnson. I actually don't believe it. So let me go find, let's go look up who else is a D Johnson in the NFL. D'Ernest Johnson? Okay, that's what it is. I was about to say, I'm like, who the heck else is D'Ernest D Johnson? Okay, so of the available, Christian Watson, Trey Tucker, Gurendo, D'Ernest Johnson. If you have Mason, you'd pick up Gurendo. If you don't, you pick up Christian Watson out of the group. Thank you. Jerry Garcia says, in a half PPR, I traded away Jonathan Taylor and Najee Harris for Chris Godwin and Travis Etienne. Don't love it at all. I have Hunt, Eckler, J.K. Dobbins. Been following since 2K. Thank you very much. Since 2K subs. Thank you, Jerry. Okay. So you traded away Jonathan Taylor and Najee Harris, okay? ETN, again, I think ETN might be over. I think the ETN days have come and gone, ladies and gentlemen. So in this circumstance, you're trading Jonathan Taylor for Chris Godwin 1-for-1, which, again, I could justify it to an extent, but I still do rather have... like, if you're desperate for a wide receiver, I can understand it. But then Najee for ETN, I'd rather have Najee rest season. That's the only issue that I have in that scenario. Jay says, I'll post the question in the chat. Okay, when ready. Jay, do me a favor and type it in the chat when you get a chance. I'll be waiting for that, Jay. Thank you. All right, until Jay sends that in, Emily Doyle sends in a question, says, hi, Andrew. Should I hold on to Justin Fields? It's a 2-quarterback. Yes, in a 2-quarterback league, you should. Yes, you should. You have Goff, Purdy, and Herbert. I think you should, just because if you end up dropping him and they go back to him, there's a lot of value to be had there. If you can afford to keep him on roster and it's not going to like hurt you in one of these weeks because you don't have it, you have to hold on to him. Therefore, you can't pick up a kicker and you lose out on like 10 points within a given week and you lose the week. I don't think it's worth it at that point. I don't want it to jeopardize wins and losses. I just rather keep it just in case. Now, maybe you could end up moving him to the, Russell Wilson manager just to kind of give him his handcuff. But otherwise, I would try to hold on to it as long as it doesn't jeopardize any sort of wins and losses for the future. Caesar sends in a question, says, Kyler, Marvin Harrison, Olave, Hill, Smitty, BTJ, JSN, Cook, Bijan, Stevenson, Brooks. And, okay, I'm 2-4. What should I do? I'm 9th out of this 10-team league. Okay, so under the assumption that it's a 10-team league and 6 teams make the playoffs, you're going to probably need to get yourself 8 wins. So at this current moment in time, with 8 weeks remaining until the fantasy playoffs get to us, you are going to need to win 6 of the next 8 games. Therefore, you are in the business of trading Marvin Harrison this week, trading Chris Olave this week, potentially. Okay, then you would start Hill, Smitty, BTJ. If Cook doesn't play, you trade him as well. And that's how you're going to have to go about this, Caesar. Unfortunately, because of how this season has started, and if you lose this week, then you would have to be forced to winning 6 of the next 7 games, which again, anything could happen. Just like it did last week with you have 2 of your starters have concussions and you lose the week automatically because you get zeros from Olave and Marvin Harrison. That could happen in any given week in the future. So it is very imperative that you make moves in terms of selling these players now in order to get some sort of value in return that can help you have an actual decent starting lineup. So in your position, I'm looking to move like an Olave and Cook and try to get a running back in exchange for it. Because quite frankly, I don't want to start Ramondre Stevenson. I don't even know if Ramondre plays. So you have to start somebody next to Bijan this week. And if it's not going to be Cook, you move Olave and Cook in order to get that upside of value. Otherwise, wide receiver solid. Kyler is okay. I don't love it, but it's okay. And then Bijan with whatever running back you get in exchange should be fine. Thank you. Jonathan sends in a question. Says, I have both Adams and Wilson. Do I trade one of them? If so, for who? I have Deontay Johnson, Saquon Barkley. I have James Conner, Tucker Kraft, Tank Dell, Jerome Ford, Ramondre Stevenson, Khalil Shakir, Singletary, Laporte. Okay, so your wide receivers, in comparison to what you have Deontay Johnson, Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams. You have 3 studs. If you're going to trade one of these wide receivers away, you would need a wide receiver in return because you really don't have any other additional wide receiver depth. Khalil Shakir does not count. He's still injured as far as I'm concerned based on his snap counts and his usage last night. And Amari Cooper coming back doesn't really help his overall designation for the future of him being a startable option weekly. So as it currently stands, with that all into context, unless you are moving Garrett Wilson for a player that is comparable to his overall potential contribution, theoretically, unless you're going after, I don't. Okay. Let's just put this into perspective. I don't expect him to get 22 targets in a game ever again. So yes, he's going to be a lesser value player, but I still have him at the value of where I'd like to get DK Metcalf in exchange. I will take Mike Evans in exchange. Terry McLaurin could work. Zay Flowers could work. That is the kind of market range. At a base minimum, Deebo Samuel would work. Devontae Smith could work. In a PPR, that is the base minimum value range that I'm going for. BTJ could work, but that at that point, I might keep him. But otherwise, I don't think you have to move, but only if you want to. Andrew Clark sends in a question: should I trade Wilson for Aaron Jones and Keenan Allen? I'm 1-5. I have Jaden Daniels, Achane Swift, AJ Brown, Pickens, Sutton, Juju, Komet. Okay, so you're basically trading away Garrett Wilson in order to give yourself a second starting running back that you can at least start this week. That's literally the only reason you'd make that trade. If that's the case, I would go and I'd watch my video today in regards to running back rankings and get somebody higher ranked than Aaron Jones this week, because you're really only making that trade to give yourself immediate value within this week rather than the future. Thank you. All right, let's find it and see if Jay has sent in his super chat question. Jay? Okay, I see Jay. Says, I posted my question. Okay, Jay, let me go ahead and scroll up. Says, looks for downs. Wait, you said multiple questions. Okay. 12-team PPR, and I sit in 3rd place. Would you trade Josh Jacobs and Josh Downs for Devontae Adams? I'm worried that, I would take the deal. I would take Devontae Adams. In a PPR, I would take the deal. In a bubble, I take it if your team requires. Let me see your running backs. Jacobs, Mason, Achane. Okay, so here's your issue. If you trade away Jacobs and Mason disappears when McCaffrey returns, you have Achane. You don't have any other running backs. So you'd have to hope that Jonathan Brooks comes back and overthrows. You'd have to hope that he So basically, geez Louise, man. You're making a huge risk play here, in my opinion, making this trade. Because you don't have the running back depth to be able to sustain it, maybe, to a point. Especially if Mason doesn't play this week, you don't pick up Garendo or anything like that, you may be in trouble. So there's a lot of inherent risk there. Would I take it in a bubble? Yes, but considering your context to your team, unless you're making another move to get another running back on roster, eventually you're not going to have anyone but Achane, which is very risky in this circumstance. Unless your league is you only start one running back per week, and everything else is a flex. That would be the only other circumstance in which I'd keep it as us taking the trade in that circumstance. Thank you. All right, moving on. We had a question that came in from. Okay, Aaron Roscoe sent in his question. Let's answer that. It says PPR, drop ETN and pick up Mostert. Nope. Again, ETN is going to be a player that you can put on your IR. Until then, you keep it as is. You do not drop him. My running backs are Jacob, Stevenson, Hunt, and ETN. Waivers are, you're fine. That's fine. I'm not dropping him, though. Waivers are Myers, Downs, Dobbs, Juju. Who do I pick up? Look, if you're going to burn waiver and you don't have a high priority, again, I'm not dropping ETN. If you can pick up players, again, as a priority, Juju, Myers, those are the 2 that I want. Juju, Myers, Downs. That's probably the order that we go about it. Thank you. Keelan sends in a question, says, I have Lamar as my quarterback. I had Mayfield as a backup. Yeah, giving away Mayfield in that circumstance is not a big deal. Well done. Brandon Dorcas says, in a 10-team, I'm 2-4 in a PPR. I have CJ Stroud, Justin Fields, Gibbs, Achane, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Marvin Harrison Jr., Terry McLaurin, Evan Ingram. My bench consists of Braylon Allen, okay, Javonte Williams, Bigsby, Amari Cooper, Shakir, Laporta, Fields, rest of season outlook, more context in the chat. Okay. So what other context? You've given me your whole team. Let me see if you have any more. Brandon. He says, more context. Lost last 3 weeks by losing Rice, Achane, Marvin Harrison. Early last 3 weeks, dropping Shakir for Juju. Worthy available too. No, I'd rather have Juju than Worthy. Rashad White / Algier are available. Drop Braylon for White. I'd be okay with that. That's not an issue at all. That's a great overall move. But looking, okay, so as a whole, CJ Stroud's fine. Gibbs is fine. Achane's fine. Amon-Ra St. Brown's fine. When Marvin Harrison's healthy, it's fine. But until then, you have Terry McLaurin as your number 2 wide receiver. So you're solid there. You have a solid tight end in Ingram. You have Amari Cooper. You have Marvin Harrison. You have, again, you have Laporta still, which again is someone that you probably want to trade if you're going to roster and start Ingram for the future. So you've got a lot of value here. You still have Bigsby, which again is a startable option within the upcoming week as well for a flex. So really, I'm not panicking here with your team. I look at your team as a whole, and I think you've got a lot of sustained value for the future. Just got to get healthy. And once you do, I think you're in a really good spot. Now, Fields' rest of season value, again, if they're going to move on to Russell Wilson, that just makes me believe that they don't trust Fields. And if you don't already trust Fields based on what he has delivered, I don't think it gets any better once you bench him now. I think that kind of saps the quarterback's confidence away. I think it's a terrible decision by the organization, but that's my personal opinion. Not really fantasy related. Now, in terms of fantasy related, it theoretically helps Pickens and Freiermuth. That's all I can say. And it actually helps everyone but Fields. It actually also helps Najee Harris to an extent, if they can move the ball as effectively, but of course, no red zone threat to Najee. So ultimately, strong looking team. I'm not making any moves really. I think you don't have to. I think you've got enough depth and enough strength to be able to sustain going in the future. You just got to string together some wins here. Because I do think that the players that you have on roster can deliver that for you. So I'm not saying like, oh, we got to make a move. We got to trade this or that. Thank you. All right, moving on to a question that came in from Fernando, who says, start Baker, start Bowers, flex Debo, or Brian Thomas Jr. Okay, so Debo takes on the Chiefs, and Brian Thomas Jr. takes on the New England Patriots. I'm more inclined to probably play Debo ever so slightly, but that's because of the revenge game factor. Brian Thomas Jr. taking on I don't love the matchup against Christian Gonzalez. That's my only issue. So yeah, I'm probably going to lean towards Debo as of right now, just ever so slightly though. We'll have the rankings in tomorrow's video for wide receiver top 40. Thank you. Major Arms says Vikings or Steelers rest of season. Week 9 bye. Keep both or just run with the Vikings. Waiting on waiver, Juju / Watkins. Drop Adunze and Kraft. Got Ingram, Goddard, Adams, CD, Wanda. Yeah, I think you can hold on to both of them. I don't think you need to drop one or the other unless you get into a situation where like an injury impacts you or you get into bye week hell. And I don't think bye week hell actually arrives until week 11, if I'm not mistaken. Let me check this out. NFL week 11. Maybe it's week 12. You know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, I actually think it is week 12. There's 6 teams on bye, but let me just confirm. So week 11, there's 4 teams on bye. And then week 12, I think there's no teams on bye. And then I think it may be week 13. Nope. Let me check week 12 then. Yeah, week 12 is bye week hell. The Falcons, Bills, Bengals, Jaguars, Saints, and Jets are all observing bye weeks in week 12. So as long as you can survive until then without having any worry of lack of depth or injury, then I think you'll be fine. Aaron Lee says, Amon-Ra St. Brown for Neighbors and Evans. Yes, give me Neighbors and Evans 10 times out of 10, actually 12 times out of 10, and twice on Sundays. It's not even close. Neighbors and Evans for Amon-Ra. You are scamming them by taking Neighbors and Evans in this circumstance. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to a question that came in from J-Man. Let me see if I can find it in the live chat. Nothing was attached. J-Man says nothing. Okay, J-Man, do me a favor. If you're still here, do me a favor and type in the live chat what your question was that was supposed to be attached to the super chat. Thank you, J-Man. Appreciate it. Until that comes through, we're going to continue on with a question that comes in from All Rise 99, who says, should I trade Kelsey for James Cook or Scary Terry, or trade Kelsey and Reed for Hill? I have Jefferson and St. Brown. Okay, so who is your backup for Kelsey, though? That is the issue. Like, Travis Kelce's been pretty solid in the last couple weeks, right? Because again, there's no Rashee Rice, so there's no Rashee Rice was running the Travis Kelce route tree. And in the absence of Rashee Rice the last 2 weeks, Kelce's put up 15.9 and 16.0. So if you're going to be trading for a 16-point player, that's great. I don't have an issue with that. I think there's equivalent value in there. But considering you are giving up a tight end, which is so very rare to find in fantasy, I would want to trade a 16-point tight end for like an 18-point receiver, which in this circumstance, Terry McLaurin would potentially provide for the remainder of the season. So I'm okay with that. I'm also okay with trading for James Cook if you have Ray Davis and additionally are in need of running back depth. Considering you have Jefferson and St. Brown, I would assume that you would trade Kelce for Scary Terry or Reed only, or Tyreek Hill. Sorry, the Kelce and Reed for Tyreek Hill is a sham. That is a bullshit trade. Do not take that. They're trying to scam you. Do not do that. You would only ever make this trade if you have an actual semblance of a tight end. Like you have like Evan Ingram on your bench and you're going to play him instead, or something like that. Otherwise, I think you just hold. Otherwise, it's Scary Terry if you're desperate need a wide receiver, which doesn't look like you are, or James Cook if you're. I mean, really, I wouldn't even go after James Cook at this point. I'd go after Tony Pollard at this point. I want somebody healthy at least. Thank you. Prohibit says I'm 1-5 in one of my leagues. All 5 losses have been 2 points. Wow. I got CeeDee Lamb on bye. Do I move him? Yes, you have to. You have to. Again, if you are playing in a 12-team, 10-team league and only 6 teams make the playoffs, you need 8 wins this year. At 1-5, you need to win out. Purely. You need to win 7 in the next 8. So, yeah, absolutely need to move CeeDee Lamb and try to recoup any sort of value that you theoretically could in this circumstance. Thank you. All right, so let's go back into the live chat, see if J-Man ended up typing his question. J-Man says, if Kupp is fully healthy and ready to go, I have Kupp, Devontae Adams, Godwin, Diggs, and BTJ. Since I can only start 3, who would you go with? Okay, so under the assumption that they're all healthy and ready to go, going into this week, Godwin has to play. Kupp probably has to play. Then it becomes a Devontae Adams versus Diggs conversation to where Diggs, oh man, and then you have DTJ as well. I think I actually play Kupp, Adams, and Godwin. That's the way that I'd probably go about it. And then for the remainder of the season, I'd probably continue to do the same unless otherwise noted by matchup. Thank you, J-Man. You could give Kupp the week off just to kind of see what he's capable of. But if it's Kupp in the lineup, fully healthy, with no Puka, we know what he's capable of. And there's no way in hell that we're going to have a week where Devontae Adams says he's playing, he plays against Pittsburgh, and has Aaron Rodgers on his team, and Rodgers doesn't just throw 15 times at him. Like, there's no way. So, yeah, those are the 3 that I play this week. All right. Christopher Laborde sends in a question, who says, would you bench Kyler this week and start Drake May? Oof, that's... No, I can't. I get it. I love the potential of it. He said he has killed me. I'm 1-5. I need a must win. Okay, I couldn't suggest Drake May in like full consciousness. I'd feel bad if I told you to play Drake May, who is like just he's a lesser quarterback at this current moment. Does he have the potential of outscoring him? Absolutely. He did this last week, but I'd feel so dog shit if I was to tell you to play Drake May when I don't feel like that's the correct answer. I would play Kyler. If it was my team, that's the way I go about it. That's all I can tell you. I'm only telling you guys suggestions that I would do. I would never play Drake May over Kyler regardless of record. I couldn't do it. Not until Drake May. I mean, even in the best matchup, I still can't do it. I just don't feel comfortable with it. Jorge Perez sends in a question. Thank you, Jorge. Jorge, I don't see anything attached to your message again. You keep doing this to me, Jorge. You're making me have to go finding your question. You got to retype it, Jorge. Thank you. Until then, we're continuing to answer some of these super chats that were sent in. Gosu sends in a question. Says, I'm currently 4-2. Okay, currently 4-2. Good to go. Let's see here. Let's close that. Let's close that. Boom. Okay. So, currently 4-2 with Christian McCaffrey. Plus Nico Collins on the IR. Baker, Goff, Evans, Higgins, JSN, Chuba Hubbard, Tony Pollard, Mostert, Komet, Braylon Allen, and Algier. Hold down or make moves. Look, at this point, you hold down. Because the fact that you're 4-2, you are very much so blessed considering you're a Christian McCaffrey team. Additionally, you could end up moving one of those 2 quarterbacks. Again, Baker doesn't have a bye week until way later, so you could still have him on roster and move Goff, or vice versa, move Baker and keep Goff. You could take like one of those 2 quarterbacks and pair him up with maybe Komet and try to go get a better tight end just to have a more consistent, viable option every single week. But I don't think you need to improve a wide receiver. And quite frankly, considering the timeline on Chuba Hubbard / Jalen or Jonathan Brooks, I think you're just fine. Keep it as is and keep it moving. That's the only thing that I would make a potential change on, is grabbing a quarterback and moving it maybe to get an improved tight end if you can. Caesar says, from my last question, who should I target? All right, let me go back up, Caesar, and look at your last question. Okay, yeah. So in regards to moving like Marvin Harrison and Olave, considering the overall circumstance of you not really having any, well, if you're looking for running backs, right? In this overall circumstance, you're looking for running backs in this video that are in the top potential 15. So open this video, because literally we're trying to win this week, right? That's the whole purpose. So you'd open this video and you try to go get a top 15 to top 18 running back if you can. Go and knock on every door. Thank you very much. Moving on to a question that came in from, let's see here, Inderjit, who says, should I give up Chubb and Hawkinson for Waddle? My running backs are Achane, Kamara, and ETN. My tight end is Kelsey. I would make the trade. I would. Because I do believe that Tua comes back, and I do believe Waddle in like a full PPR format goes back to being like a 16-point player per week. That's my opinion. It's risky, but I will take the risk. Thank you. Kamikaze sends in a question. Let me see if I can find it in the live chat. Kamikaze says, in a half PPR, who should I target if I were to package Pittman and Kirk? Metcalf, Devontae Smith, Reed. If you can get any of those three, you are scamming them. There's no way that anybody would give you Metcalf, Reed, or Smith for Pittman and Kirk. But if somehow, some way you manage to pull that off, congratulations, you are an absolute silver tongue. I was thinking with Pittman and Kirk, if you were lucky, I mean, the name that I was about to throw out is not really one that you might want to hear. Yeah, like I was going to say like, oh, maybe we go after, geez Louise. Like in terms of like DJ Moore would have to be the, like that's maybe one of them. Even then, I think it's risky. I don't think they even take that. I'd also be interested in a T. Higgins, but there's no way they do go after that. There's no way they bite there. There's no way an Amari Cooper manager bites on that. You're probably in the business of going after Jacoby Myers or Cortland Sutton, which aren't horrible, but that's kind of the equivalent value based on the fact that Kirk rest the season with Ingram back is not great, and Pittman is still very risky without Flacco in the lineup. Thank you. All right, let's see if Jorge Perez had typed in the question. Jorge says, full PPR, my wide receivers are Devontae, Slayton, and Mooney. Thoughts? Can hit the waiver. I mean, look, in terms of Devontae Smith, he's great. Slayton needs to be dropped. Mooney is a keep. If you hit the waivers, pick up Juju, number one. And then it would probably be in a full PPR, Douglas too. Yeah, those would be the two that I'd like to get if you can, Jorge. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, moving on from those questions, we had GK who says in a 12-team full PPR, we have Chase, Garrett, BTJ, Whittington, Pearsall, Gibbs, K9, Jacobs, Chubb, Bucky. We have Allen. We have Emmanuel Wilson. We have Kraft. We're 5-1. We're feeling like I could package a trade. I mean, look, at this point, your three wide receivers are keeps, right? Whittington will eventually lose value, but Chase, Garrett, and BTJ are good to go there. Gibbs, K9, Jacobs, Chubb, I guess, and Bucky, maybe you could end up making a move at that capacity to where you are sending away. Like, you'd keep Gibbs and K9. You would move Jacobs and maybe Chubb and try to go get another running back, or you would move Chubb plus BTJ and try to get like a superior wide receiver. Like, that's the only way that I'd move it as it currently stands. You could also try to go get a tight end, but it'd be very, very, very circumstantial based on what you can get in return. Because top tier tight ends require legitimate value, and I'm not trying to break off like a Jacobs in order to get a tight end. I'd rather go after a superior running back or wide receiver if I was going to make a move of that capacity. X Reese 2010 says, with Andrew Thomas news, should I trade Neighbors? No, I wouldn't trade Neighbors. Again, with Andrew Thomas, Liz Frank injury going out, one of the best left tackles in the league, there were still circumstances in which he lost one-on-one. Is it a 100% disaster that he is gone? Yes, but they're going to chip block the whole time for their new left tackle. So they're not going to leave him on an island. Someone offering Drake London and Jacobs for Neighbors, I'd be okay with that. If someone wants to give me Drake London and Jacobs for Neighbors, I'll take Drake London and Jacobs. Thank you very much. Thank you. Harold Millard says, half PPR Cook plus Deontay for Lamb. I'm stacked at running back and week wide receiver. I'm cool with that. But again, Lamb is the long term because he doesn't play this week, right? But yeah, I don't have an issue with it. Quinn sends in a question, says, I'm 3 and 3.5 PPR. Allen, Baker, Kyron, Brees, Amari, Godwin, Olave, Higgins, Laporta, likely Otten. What's a fair price for Amon-Ra St. Brown? Is Allen and Higgins too much? I would say Baker and Higgins is fair. Allen, with the rushing upside that he presents on a weekly basis, now also getting Amari Cooper, seems like it's too much. If you give Baker and Higgins, or if you give Allen and Olave, I'd say that's okay. But if Baker, Higgins, probably a little bit more stable to make the deal less palatable or more palatable in this circumstance. Thank you. Marian Garcia sent in a question. Let me go ahead and go to the live chat. Control F. Marian Garcia says, should I make any moves? I'm in a full PPR. I have Josh Allen, Kamara, Jacobs, Lamb, Zay Flowers. I have McBride, JSN, Jameson Williams, D-Hop, Rome, and Janet. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Zay Flowers. Not sure why you're not. I understand like the fluctuation, but yeah, if you want to move Zay Flowers, you can. Ask for who you get in exchange for Zay Flowers. Again, I mean, I'd go after Deebo Samuel. I'd go after Devontae Smith. I'd go after Mike Evans, DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin, those players, that kind of caliber. Thank you. But I think your roster looks pretty good so far. All right, Major Arms says, I have to drop someone. Adams, past physical, wide receiver or defense. Got it. Let me scroll back up to your team, Major Arms, so I can look at it across the board. So considering you need to drop somebody, waiver. Okay, so you're dropping a Dunze and Kraft already, though, right? So if it was me, I'm just dropping the Steelers, and I'm probably just running the Vikings defense rest of the season. Considering you're already dropping other players, I at that point I drop the defense and I just roll with the Vikings rest of the season. Thank you. Moving on to a question that comes in from Edgar, who says, in a 4-1. I'm 4-1-1. Wow, you have a tie this season. Running backs are Chuba Hubbard, Jonathan Brooks, Tracy, Bucky, Hunt, Algier. Okay, so running back, we're not looking great, but we're surviving. We have also Christian McCaffrey. Okay, so we're waiting for that return. Wide receivers are DK, Neighbors, Evans. Tight end is McBride and Laporta. Okay, very well. Giving DK, Bucky, and Laporta too much for Jefferson. Yes. So here's the thing. If they want to take DK and Laporta, that's fine. But I think Bucky's just the egregious, like they're pulling too much here. If they want to take Laporta and DK for Jefferson, fine. You can survive it. You've got so much depth on this team that you could just get away with it. But otherwise, yeah, it's too much. Thank you. Giggs sends in a question. It says, trade Kincaid plus Ayuk or Worthy or DJ for Amari. Yeah, I mean, if you can trade away Kincaid and Worthy for Amari Cooper, I would do that. Just trade away Worthy right now. Thank you. Hi, Mike sends in a question. Says, I got Wilson and Adams. Should I trade one or keep both? I'm comfortable keeping both. That is my opinion on the matter. Mainly, again, because this offense is going to be able to feed them both. One of them, there are going to be games over the course of the season where one of them may disappear. Just in the same way in which we have, Deebo Samuel, Ayuk, Kittle on one team, one disappears every now and then. Or there's a potential of there's a Mike Evans week and then there's a Godwin week. Maybe both of them play well, maybe one plays well, right? There's going to be situations like that. It's not to say that Garrett Wilson is a significantly lesser option. It's just like his opportunity share at times may go in the opposite direction to where if you want to trade him for a player of his similar caliber, like I was mentioning earlier, if you want to trade him for a Mike Evans, that's fine. I don't have an issue with that. I'm just looking for equivalent value if I'm going to move him. Otherwise, if I'm not going to get equivalent value, I'm not moving him. I'd rather just have him ball out and prove to everyone, look, he's still going to be good. Now, do you want him? Thank you. Peyton Whitaker sends in a question. Says, hey, Pookie, Andrews / Mostert / what is that? Hunt and Johnston for Pollard. Holy moly. Okay, so you're trading away Mark Andrews, Mostert, Kareem Hunt, and Quentin Johnston for Pollard. Also, okay, in a bubble, sure. I don't know what the context of your team looks like. If you're giving away all these pieces for just Pollard, it means that those pieces are irrelevant to you. And at that point, if Pollard shoves into your starting lineup for the rest of the season, he's worth it. Moving on to the next question, also Sermon for Algier and Wicks. Sermon is I'm going to say he's droppable. So if you can get Algier and Wicks for him, let's do it. Absolutely. Andrew just sends in a question. Said, I traded Jefferson for Kyler and Neighbors. Quarterbacks were, yeah, that's fine. I don't have an issue with that. Well done. Alex Olivas sends in a question. Says, Andrew, I play in a second league and someone dropped James Cook. Okay, that's a joke. Okay, continuing on. Yes, you dropped the entire $82 that you have left in Fab. Yep, the entire clip. No hesitation. The entire clip gets dropped. Thank you. Frank H sends, well, actually, you know what? You compare it to other teams. If you have the most Fab, like let's say, for example, the next highest team has 64 Fab, then you just use 65. But you also have to be careful that no one makes a trade, and a trade includes Fab in which they can outbid you. So as long as, you know, someone has more Fab than you, put 82 on it. Thank you. Frank H says, got offered Kyler for Downs, Bigsby. Got offered Kyler for Downs and Bigsby. I dropped Dak. I mean, if you can't go and pick up Sam Darnold or Aaron Rodgers off the waiver, then sure. That would be it. That's the only thing I can say. If there's no other alternative options that you could pick up, like a Darnold or Rodgers off waivers, then yeah, then you kind of have to make the deal, right? Thank you. All right, guys, we've been here for an hour and 45 minutes. Usually I like to make this an hour to an hour and a half live stream. We obviously went way beyond that. I appreciate you guys coming through, supporting the channel with your questions, clicking the like button, sending in super chats, all that kind of jazz. But that's what we're going to call it. That was the final question of the day. I appreciate y'all. I'll be back tomorrow tomorrow night, same time. Again, tomorrow we will have our wide receiver video in the top 40 rankings. Again, the top 40 running back rankings were posted today. So if you guys are interested, check it out right here. This is the thumbnail. It's live on the channel. I appreciate y'all. Again, if you guys want to continue to support the channel and find additional content outside of the streams and the videos, you can do so either via Underdog. When you sign up, you get the rankings every single Sunday morning for the remainder of the season. All you got to do is sign up using code Andrew, make that first time deposit a minimum of $10. You get the rankings. And of course, you can follow our picks. As of late, we have been on fire for 3 consecutive weeks here. And then additionally, on top of that, if you guys aren't eligible or if you've used the code in the past and can't access those rankings, and if additionally you want to ask me questions over the course of the week, the Patreon link down in the description, you get the rankings every Thursday and Sunday. You can ask me unlimited questions, all that kind of jazz available there. Links are down in the description. Thank you. All right, guys. That's going to cut it. That's going to pretty much finish it out for today. I'm going to cue the greatest guitar solo of all time. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. See you guys. Peace.